For nearly 20 years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have been the picture-perfect Hollywood love story. But if you believe the headlines, that story has come to a dramatic end. Behind the scenes, one of their closest friends has supposedly been watching it all fall apart, Russell Crowe. And after years of watching the rumor mill churn, he's allegedly breaking his silence on the shocking truth behind their supposed divorce. So, what did Russell Crowe see that we didn't? And what's the real story behind the rumored collapse of one of Hollywood's favorite marriages? The tale being told across countless headlines is one of heartbreak and betrayal. They say a divorce was announced in September 2025 and finalized by January 2026. They say Keith walked away, leaving Nicole heartbroken. They say Russell Crowe became her emotional rock, fielding daily phone calls and holding her together. This story has all the drama you could ask for, a tale of lost love and tested friendship. But here's the billion-dollar question, is any of it true? Today, we're not just pulling back the curtain on Nicole and Keith, but on the gossip machine that creates these stories. Because the most shocking secret isn't about a divorce, it's about the story itself. To understand the rumored cracks, you have to appreciate the flawless facade. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's love story wasn't just a romance. It was a masterclass in public relations that started back in January 2005. The scene was the Day LA Gala, an event celebrating Aussies in Hollywood. She was the Oscar-winning screen siren, he was the country music star with a guitar and a rebellious charm. It's a meet-cute they've polished in countless interviews. Nicole, the poised movie star, recalls being so smitten she was sure he wouldn't be interested. Keith has admitted he was so intimidated it took him 4 months just to work up the nerve to call her. But once he did, a legendary love story began. Nicole told people she knew he was the one on her 38th birthday. Keith showed up on her New York doorstep at 5 a.m. with a huge bouquet of gardenias. "That is when I went, this is the man I hope I get to marry," she said. "I believed by that point he was the love of my life." Their wedding in June 2006, just outside Sydney, felt like a royal wedding for Australia, a union of two of its most famous exports. The world was captivated. But the fairy tale hit a brutal reality check almost immediately. Just 4 months after their vows, Keith Urban, who had fought addiction for years, checked himself into rehab. It was a crisis that could have easily destroyed their brand new marriage. Years later, Keith would tell Rolling Stone, "I caused the implosion of my fresh marriage." At the AFI Life Achievement Award Gala in April 2024, he confessed that his addictions blew our marriage to smithereens. This is where the legend of Nicole Kidman, the wife, was born. Instead of leaving, she ran toward the problem. She cancelled press tours and stood by him. As Keith recalled with tears in his eyes at that same gala, Nick pushed through every negative voice, I'm sure even some of her own, and she chose love. Her response wasn't just supportive, it was seen as heroic. It cemented their image as a couple whose love was strong enough to survive any storm. She wasn't just his wife, she was his savior. For the next 18 years, they leaned into this image of unbreakable devotion. They built a life not in Hollywood, but in Nashville, Tennessee, and their native Australia. They had 2 daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, and created a portrait of a grounded celebrity family. Their red carpet appearances were a performance of intimacy. The lingering looks, the hand-holding, the way he'd stare at her like she was the only one in the room. They talked about their no more than 3 days apart rule, a sweet anecdote about prioritizing their marriage over their crazy schedules. In the public eye, they were more than a couple. They were proof that true love could conquer anything, addiction, fame, you name it. Their marriage was the gold standard. It was real, it was raw, and it had been tested. This carefully crafted story of struggle and redemption is the perfect setup for the drama that was supposedly about to unfold. And it's this perfect image that makes the stories of its collapse so. Every perfect story has to end, and in the world of celebrity gossip, if an ending isn't available, one will be created for you. The narrative of Nicole and Keith's perfect marriage started to show its first cracks, not in real life, but in the pages of tabloids. The whispers were quiet at first, but they were persistent, planting seeds of doubt that would soon grow out of control. The Trouble in Paradise narrative almost always starts with logistics. With Nicole being a globe-trotting actress and Keith being a touring musician, their careers provided the perfect kindling for rumors. Anonymous insiders started talking to magazines about the strain of living separate lives. These sources, always conveniently unnamed, would talk about lonely nights and the erosion of intimacy that comes from being apart so often. Then, the allegations got uglier. The story shifted from logistical strain to emotional distance, and finally, to mistrust. Stories that were impossible to verify, but deeply damaging, started to pop up. Keith's behavior on tour was suddenly under a microscope. Anonymous sources claimed to have seen him being protective of his phone, giving Nicole a gnawing intuition that something was wrong. One of the most detailed narratives, spread across YouTube and tabloids, involved a dramatic confrontation. According to this story, Nicole finally discovered a series of concerning messages on Keith's phone from a female band member. This supposed discovery, the story goes, led to a 4-hour, tear-filled fight where everything came out. It's a perfectly crafted piece of gossip, it's specific, it's emotional, and it feels like a movie scene. It casts Nicole as the wronged wife and Keith as the cheating husband. After this supposed fight, the narrative claimed they agreed to a failed reconciliation over the summer. But, as the storytellers insist, the trust was broken. Alongside the cheating narrative, another one formed around Keith, the midlife crisis. Anonymous sources claimed he was desperate to live the single life, and was chasing his youth with younger musicians. Rumors linked him to singers like Carly Scott Collins and Maggie Baugh, despite a total lack of evidence. These rumors served to paint Keith not just as unfaithful, but as a man pathetically clinging to his youth, making Nicole's supposed betrayal feel even more tragic. What makes these rumors so effective is how they play on old stereotypes. The touring rock star and the lonely actress wife is a trope as old as Hollywood. The stories are designed to be believable by mixing tiny, verifiable facts, like their schedules, with pure fiction. Soon, every public appearance was reinterpreted to fit this new, darker narrative. A heartfelt tribute from Keith at an awards show was no longer a sign of love, but a textbook case of overcompensation, a guilty performance for the cameras. The fairy tale was being systematically taken apart, piece by piece, and replaced by a tragedy that was far more clickable. Every good drama needs a hero, and in the made-up story of the Kidman-Urban divorce, the role of the noble protector and emotional rock was given, without his permission, to Russell Crowe. Casting him was a genius move by the gossip industry, giving the whole sordid tale an air of credibility. The friendship between Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe is very real. It's a deep bond that goes back decades, long before either of them were global superstars. They came up together in the Australian film industry in the late 80s. As Nicole has said, they were both Australian actors who are from the same generation, so we knew each other, or rather, circled each other. Their friendship was built on shared dreams and a common background. This real history made Crowe the perfect character to drop into the divorce story. He wasn't just some random colleague, he was practically family. To get things started, tabloids began pushing the idea that Crowe was their original matchmaker, the one who introduced Nicole and Keith at that gala back in 2005. This positioned him as the story's wise elder, the one who had been there from the start. As the fabricated story of the marriage's collapse grew, Crowe's role changed. He was no longer just the matchmaker, he became Nicole's primary shoulder to cry on. Unnamed insiders started feeding a steady stream of stories to tabloids like Radar Online and Globe magazine. They painted a vivid picture of Crowe's loyalty, claiming he was on the phone with Nicole nearly every day just to check in. They whispered about secret coffee meetups to comfort her away from prying eyes. The narrative was incredibly specific. Crowe, having gone through his own public divorce, was supposedly the only one who could truly understand her pain. He was reportedly giving her hard-earned wisdom, urging her to focus on her kids and not jump into a rebound romance. One source told Globe magazine that Crowe warned Kidman not to dive headfirst into a new relationship to fill the void left by Keith's absence. This advice made him sound like a wise and caring protector. Of course, to make the drama complete, there had to be some conflict. And so, stories emerged that all these calls were causing tension in Crowe's own life. His girlfriend, Brittany Terrio, was reportedly blindsided by the intimacy of his chats with Kidman, sparking new romance rumors. This subplot was perfect. It added a hint of forbidden romance and suggested Nicole must be completely devastated to need this level of support. The brilliance of this whole narrative is that it all hinges on one kernel of truth, their real friendship, which is then spun into a web of fiction. There has never been a single on-the-record statement or a verified quote from Russell Crowe to back any of this up. He has never broken his silence or revealed the truth. Instead, his silence has been used as a blank canvas for the gossip industry to paint its own story of heartbreak and heroic friendship, a story far too good to be ruined by the fact. This is where it all comes together, the moment that a shocking truth is supposed to be revealed. So, what is the bombshell that Russell Crowe supposedly dropped? The truth is, there is no revelation. The entire story is a fabrication, a house of cards built on anonymous sources and pure speculation. So let's take a hammer to the foundations and watch it all fall down. First, the central claim, the divorce itself. Across a network of gossip sites and YouTube channels, a very specific timeline has been repeated so often it started to sound like fact. The story says Nicole and Keith announced their split in September 2025, with Nicole filing for divorce on September 30th. They claim the divorce was finalized on January 6, 2026. This is presented as fact. But a quick check of public records and credible news outlets shows nothing. No divorce filing, no official announcement, no finalization. As of May 2026, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban are still married. The entire premise is a lie. But it's the small, official-sounding details that make the lie so believable. The stories are filled with specific, legal-sounding claims about custody of their daughters. One report confidently states the girls spend 306 days a year with Nicole and just 59 with Keith. Another claims Nicole was named the primary residential parent. These numbers and legal terms create a false sense of authenticity. They sound like they've been pulled from court documents, so we assume they must be true. They're not. Since there's no divorce, there's no custody agreement. These details were just invented. Then there are the quotes from Nicole herself about this difficult year. A March 2026 interview has been widely cited as the moment she broke her silence. In this supposed interview, she's quoted saying, "I was quiet. I had other things going on. I was in my shell." When asked about the separation, she supposedly says, "I'm staying in a place of, we are a family, and that's what we'll continue to be." These quotes are designed to sound exactly like Nicole Kidman, poised and protective. And they might even be real quotes, but they've been taken completely out of context from other interviews about other things, then stitched together to create a fake confession. Russell Crowe's role as the insider is the linchpin of the whole deception. The narrative claims he witnessed Nicole's pain and knew all the secrets. The story of him comforting a betrayed Nicole through daily phone calls is central to the tale's emotional core. Yet, in all these breathless reports from places like OK! Magazine and National Enquirer, there is not one single, verifiable quote from Russell Crowe. He's a silent character in a story he never signed up for. Phrases like, according to Russell Crowe's interpretation, are masterfully deceptive, allowing them to attribute any speculation to him without ever providing proof. Even real history is twisted to serve the fake story. Keith Urban's real struggle with addiction in 2006 is used to establish Nicole's loyalty, making her supposed betrayal years later feel all the more tragic. They blend the real drama of their early marriage with the fake drama of their recent split to create a seamless, believable, and utterly false timeline. What we're left with is a story without a single verifiable fact at its center, propped up by fake timelines, made-up legal details, and the silent, unwilling participation of a loyal friend. When a shocking story like a celebrity divorce takes hold, it creates its own reality, even if it's a lie. The fabricated narrative of Nicole and Keith's split produced a whole universe of post-divorce analysis that treats the original hoax as fact. This is the second, more insidious act of misinformation. Once the divorce was established in the gossip world, the focus shifted to the aftermath. How were they coping? Suddenly, every public appearance and Instagram post was analyzed through the lens of a breakup. Nicole, in particular, became a subject of intense speculation. Her fashion choices were suddenly given deep symbolic meaning. When she appeared in a daring Schiaparelli gown, it wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a declaration of independence. Tabloids ran headlines about her new, punk rock aesthetic, interpreting her style as a way of sending Keith a message. Her daughters, Sunday and Faith, were also pulled into the drama. Their social media was monitored for signs of family trouble. In one instance, their 17-year-old daughter, Sunday Rose, was said to have briefly unfollowed her dad on Instagram. This tiny digital act was blown up into a major, social media snub that supposedly revealed deep rifts in the family. Meanwhile, Keith Urban was cast as the lonely, midlife crisis divorcee. His tours were now seen as a sad escape. When he was spotted without his wedding ring, it was a front-page story. His on-stage behavior was analyzed for hidden meanings. A subtle change in the lyrics of his song, You'll Think of Me, from Take Your Space and Take Your Reasons, to Take Your Space and Take Your Bull****** reasons, was seen as a fiery shot at his ex-wife. When a photo of Nicole briefly appeared on the screen behind him during a concert, it was seen not as a mistake, but as a painful reminder of the life he'd lost. This whole ecosystem of post-hoax reporting shows how online misinformation feeds itself. The initial lie created a demand for follow-up content. And since the premise was false, new evidence had to be manufactured from thin air. Fashion choices and Instagram follows were turned into clues in a mystery that never existed. The characters of newly single Nicole and midlife crisis Keith were so compelling that they took on a life of their own, completely detached from the real people they were supposed to be. So let's go back to the title. Russell Crowe finally reveals the truth about Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. It turns out, the truth isn't what we were promised. The real revelation isn't about an affair or a messy divorce. The real truth is about how a lie is built. It's that a powerful and convincing narrative was constructed out of thin air, using small bits of fact, like a real friendship, to sell a mountain of fiction. The story of the Kidman-Urban divorce is a perfect case study in modern gossip. It shows how unnamed insiders, twisted quotes, and pure imagination can be spun into a story that feels so real and detailed that our brains are wired to believe it. We saw how a fake timeline and fake legal details were repeated across dozens of platforms until they created their own reality. The most disturbing part is the role assigned to Russell Crowe. His real, decades-long loyalty to Nicole Kidman was weaponized. His silence was twisted into agreement. He was turned into a character. The Protector, in a play he never auditioned for, his name used to back up claims he never made. So what does this say about us, the audience? We're drawn to these stories. We're compelled by the drama of a perfect love story falling apart. We want to believe we're getting a secret look behind the curtain. And the people who create this content know that a title like, "Finally Reveals the Truth," is almost impossible to resist. But maybe it's time we started asking different questions. Instead of asking, what really happened, maybe we should be asking, who is telling this story and why? The most valuable truth Russell Crowe has accidentally revealed has nothing to do with Nicole and Keith's marriage. It's a truth about being smarter consumers of media, about questioning sources, and about recognizing the difference between a real story and one that's just well told. Now, we'll turn the question over to you. What do you think about this phenomenon? Have you ever fallen for a story like this, only to find out it was completely made up? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this look into the mechanics of celebrity gossip interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives that go behind the headlines.